Picture an island where a land predator never evolved. No wolves, no cats, not even rats, until humans arrived. Picture a bird as tall as a grown man, one that never learned to fly and never needed to fear anything because nothing on the ground could ever catch it. Picture an eagle with a nearly 3-meter wingspan, hunting animals that weighed 1/4 of a ton, dropping out of the sky like a living missile. And picture a reptile that hasn't changed in 200 million years, one that still carries a third eye hidden beneath the skin on top of its head. Picture a bat, of all creatures, that gave up flying for most of its waking life and learned to run across the forest floor instead, the only native land mammal an entire country ever produced. This isn't fantasy. This is New Zealand, the last fragment of an ancient supercontinent that spent 80 million years almost completely cut off from the rest of the world. And that isolation turned it into one of the strangest ecosystems on the entire planet. To understand why this small stretch of land became so utterly unlike anywhere else, we have to go back, not thousands of years, but tens of millions. Once, all of Earth's continents were joined as a single landmass. Scientists call this ancient supercontinent Gondwana, and it bound together South America, Africa, India, Antarctica, and Australia into one enormous stretch of land. Around 85 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous period, the planet's crust began to split apart. Massive rifts tore through the ancient ocean floor, and a small fragment of land, the future New Zealand, slowly began drifting away from Australia and Antarctica. From that moment on, the island was completely severed from the rest of the world. No land bridges, no routes for large mammals or predators to walk across. For 80 million years, New Zealand became a world entirely of its own, a vast natural laboratory where evolution could experiment without any outside interference at all. And the strangest part of that experiment is what never showed up. Not a single native land predator existed anywhere on the island throughout its entire history. No wolves, no wildcats, no weasels, nothing at all. The ecological niche that predatory mammals occupy on every other continent simply remained empty here. Nature, as the saying goes, abhors a vacuum, and it filled that vacuum in an entirely unexpected way, with birds and reptiles stepping into roles usually reserved for mammals. Picture New Zealand 10,000 years ago, long before the first humans ever arrived. Across the dense fern forests roamed giant flightless birds called moa. At least 9 separate species existed, and the largest of them, the giant moa, grew up to 3.5 meters tall and weighed as much as 250 kilograms. They had no wings whatsoever, not even vestigial bones, not the faintest trace of them, making moa a genuinely unique case even among flightless birds, most of which retain at least small wing structures. With no land predators around, moa evolved without a single defensive instinct. There was simply nothing to run from. They grazed peacefully through the forests, feeding on leaves, twigs, and fruit, and likely lived for decades. Some estimates suggest a lifespan comparable to that of a human being. But one threat to moa did exist, a threat that came from the sky. Haast's eagle, named after the explorer who first described its remains, was the largest eagle ever known to have existed on Earth. Its wingspan reached nearly 3 meters, and it weighed up to 15 kilograms, making it several times heavier than any eagle alive today. According to paleontologist estimates, the striking force of Haast's eagle's talons may have been comparable to being struck by a falling brick dropped from several stories up. This eagle was the only predator capable of killing a fully grown adult moa. It attacked from above at tremendous speed, aiming its talons directly at the pelvis and spine of its prey, delivering fatal injuries in a single strike. Scientists studying moa remains have found characteristic puncture marks from Haast's eagle talons on the bones, direct evidence that this aerial giant genuinely hunted creatures roughly 20 times its own body weight. This was likely one of the strangest food chains in the history of island ecosystems. The only land predator on an entire landmass existed exclusively in the sky. But there's an even stranger side to this story. According to Maori oral tradition, the indigenous people of New Zealand, legends existed describing a giant bird of prey capable of carrying off not only animals, but children as well. For a long time, these stories were dismissed as pure folklore, until 19th century scientists uncovered the remains of Haast's eagle and realized that a creature like this genuinely could have existed in the relatively recent past, overlapping with the earliest humans on the island. The difference is that Haast's eagle appears to have specialized specifically in hunting moa rather than people. But the fact that the legend described a real, extinct creature rather than a purely imaginary monster makes the story especially unsettling. While Haast's eagle ruled the skies, an equally strange evolutionary story was unfolding on the ground. The story of a creature that looked as though it had simply gotten stuck in the past. The tuatara, also known as a living fossil, is a reptile whose lineage traces back roughly 200 million years, long before dinosaurs existed in the form most people picture. It belongs to an entirely separate order of reptiles, and it's the only living member of that order left on Earth. Every other species within that lineage went extinct tens of millions of years ago. The tuatara is quite literally a survivor from deep time, one that only made it to the present day because of New Zealand's isolation. At first glance, the tuatara looks like an ordinary lizard, but that's misleading. It isn't technically a lizard at all in the strict biological sense. And it carries one truly remarkable feature: a third eye. It sits on top of the skull, hidden beneath a thin layer of skin and scale, and while it doesn't form a full image, it can detect light and darkness, helping the reptile regulate its internal body clock. In younger individuals, this organ is sometimes slightly more visible, while the skin above it thickens with age. Tuatara grow and develop remarkably slowly, even by reptile standards. They don't reach sexual maturity until around 20 years of age, and their lifespan can exceed a century. Some individuals in captivity have lived past 120 years, making the tuatara one of the longest living land vertebrates on the planet. Another strange twist on an island that never had land predators is what happened to its birds. The kiwi, the country's unofficial national symbol, is a bird that has almost entirely lost the ability to fly. Its wings are tiny, tucked so tightly beneath its feathers that they're barely visible at a glance. But the truly astonishing thing about the kiwi isn't its missing wings, it's the egg. Relative to body size, the kiwi lays one of the largest eggs of any bird on Earth, one that can account for up to 20% of the female's total body weight, roughly equivalent to a human giving birth to a child weighing 15 to 20 kilograms. Kiwis are strictly nocturnal, relying not on sight but on smell. They're the only known bird species in the world with nostrils located at the very tip of the beak rather than at the base. This lets them literally sniff along the ground in search of insects and worms, much the way a mammal would. An even stranger bird on the island is the kakapo, the world's largest parrot, and one that also cannot fly. Kakapo can weigh up to 4 kilograms, making it the heaviest parrot species on the planet, and it's strictly nocturnal. It has one remarkable trait. During breeding season, males gather on elevated mounds and produce a deep, booming call that can carry for several kilometers in an attempt to attract females, a process that can continue for weeks at a time. Kakapo also smell, quite literally. They carry a distinctive, sweet, floral scent, which is highly unusual for a bird. Scientists believe this scent may have originally served to attract mates and posed no danger at all in the absence of predators. But once scent-hunting animals arrived on the island, it became one of the factors driving the species toward catastrophic decline. The ecological niche typically filled by small rodents didn't stay empty on a mammal-free island either. Insects of an extraordinary size filled it instead. The giant weta is an insect resembling an oversized cricket, and it's one of the heaviest insect species in the world. Individual specimens of the wetapunga can weigh more than a sparrow. This insect essentially evolved to occupy the ecological role of a mouse, staying hidden during the day and emerging to feed at night, reaching such enormous size precisely because the island never had small mammalian predators to keep creatures like it in check. And finally, the island holds one of the most visually mesmerizing natural phenomena on the entire planet, the Waitomo cave system. Inside these limestone caves live the larvae of fungus gnats, a species found nowhere else but New Zealand. These larvae glow in the dark through a bioluminescent reaction, creating an effect on the cave ceilings that looks strikingly like a starlit night sky. Each glowing point is actually a trap. The larva hangs down thin, sticky threads resembling fishing line, and small insects drawn in by the light become caught in these strands and end up as prey. One more bird on the island carries a story almost too strange to believe. The takahe, a large flightless bird with vivid blue and green plumage, was considered completely extinct for nearly 50 years, last recorded in the late 19th century and presumed gone forever. Then, in 1948, A small surviving population was discovered by chance in a remote, snow-covered valley in the South Island, an area so isolated that the birds had apparently persisted there undetected for decades. The rediscovery became one of the most celebrated conservation stories in the country's history, though the species remains critically endangered to this day, surviving mainly through intensive breeding programs and predator-free island sanctuaries. Even the island's snails carry a touch of that same strangeness. A genus of giant carnivorous land snails found only in New Zealand can grow to the size of a human palm, with shells patterned in swirling shades of brown, amber, and black. Unlike the plant-eating snails most people picture, these predatory giants hunt earthworms at night, slurping them up whole like strands of spaghetti. Some individuals are thought to live for decades, and because they reproduce so slowly, entire populations can be wiped out by a single predator incursion within just a few years. Strangest of all, New Zealand did once have exactly one native land mammal, and even that single exception broke the rules in its own way. The short-tailed bat is one of only a handful of bat species on Earth known to spend a significant portion of its life foraging on the ground, rather than exclusively in the air. It folds its wings tightly against its body and uses them almost like limbs, scurrying across the forest floor to hunt insects, grubs, and fallen fruit, a behavior almost unheard of among bats anywhere else in the world. Scientists believe this ground foraging habit evolved precisely because New Zealand had no land predators to punish a flying mammal for coming down to Earth. The same absence of danger that let moa lose their wings and let the weta grow to the size of a small bird let this bat abandon the sky as well. Today, the short-tailed bat is critically endangered, and one of its two known species is now believed to be extinct, driven out by the very predators introduced alongside humans. The island's forests also depend on a bird most visitors barely notice, the New Zealand pigeon, a large, iridescent bird with a distinctly heavy, almost clumsy flight. Unlike the moa, it never lost the ability to fly, but its size gives it a role nothing else on the island can fill. It's one of the only remaining animals large enough to swallow the biggest native fruits whole and disperse their seeds across the forest. Several native tree species produce fruit so large that no other surviving bird can eat them. Without this single pigeon species carrying seeds from tree to tree, entire forest ecosystems could quietly lose the ability to regenerate. Conservationists sometimes describe it as a keystone species, holding up an ecological structure that took tens of millions of years to build, and one that could collapse quietly if this one bird disappeared. Taken together, these creatures tell the story of an island that never stops surprising the scientists who study it. A place where a bat forgot how to fly properly in the air and learned to run instead. Where a single pigeon holds an entire forest's reproduction in its stomach. And where every strange adaptation traces back to the same root cause: 80 million years with no predator ever walking on the ground. But, as with many other isolated islands around the world, this world frozen in time has a tragic continuation. Roughly 700 years ago, an instant in geological terms, humans set foot on the island for the very first time. These were the ancestors of the Maori, arriving by canoe across vast stretches of the Pacific Ocean. For creatures that had gone 80 million years without a single land predator, the arrival of humans was a catastrophe on an unprecedented scale. Moa, which had evolved without a single defensive instinct against ground-based hunters, turned out to be almost entirely defenseless. People hunted them for meat, feathers, and bone, and the bird's enormous size meant a single individual could feed an entire family for days. In just 1 to 2 centuries, an incredibly short span of time even by human standards, let alone geological ones, all 9 species of moa were completely wiped out. Following the disappearance of its only prey, Haast's eagle went extinct as well. Having lost its primary food source, the largest eagle in Earth's history, one that had existed for millions of years, vanished within just a few centuries of humans arriving, a dizzyingly fast collapse for a creature that had evolved across such an enormous stretch of time. Further colonization of the island by Europeans in the 19th century brought a new wave of destruction. Rats, cats, stoats, and other small predatory mammals arrived alongside people, the very kinds of animals New Zealand had never had throughout its entire evolutionary history. Native birds, including the kiwi and kakapo, had evolved in a world without predators and were completely unprepared to encounter them. Many species, including the kakapo, lost the ability to recognize a predator's scent as a threat at all. They simply never evolved to be afraid. Today, the kakapo remains one of the rarest bird species on the planet, according to the latest estimates. Only a few hundred individuals survive in the wild and in dedicated sanctuaries, each one given its own name and placed under individual monitoring by specialists. The tuatara survives almost exclusively on small offshore islands free of introduced predators, since on the mainland these reptiles were nearly wiped out entirely by introduced rats preying on their eggs. New Zealand today runs one of the most ambitious invasive predator control programs in the world, with a goal of completely eliminating introduced predatory mammals from the country by the year 2050. Specialized sanctuaries, enclosed by predator-proof barriers capable of stopping even the smallest predators, have become the last refuge for species whose evolutionary history spans tens of millions of years, yet which could vanish within just a few decades of human presence. 80 million years of isolation created a world where evolution followed a path impossible anywhere else on the planet. A world without land predators, where birds lost their wings and reptiles retained features that are, at their core, prehistoric. But in just a few centuries of human presence, this fragile balance, shaped across entire geological epochs, has been pushed to the very edge of collapse. And the more scientists study this remarkable island, the clearer it becomes that what little remains of it isn't just a rare ecosystem, it's a living window into what the entire planet might have become, had evolution simply taken a different path. Every surviving tuatara, every booming call from a kakapo on a moonlit ridge, every glowing thread hanging in the dark of a Waitomo cave, is a fragment of an experiment 80 million years in the making, one that very nearly ended before we ever got the chance to understand it. Somewhere on a predator-free offshore island tonight, a kakapo the weight of a house cat will climb to a track it dug itself, fill its throat sac with air, and boom out a call meant to travel across a valley that, for that one bird, might as well still be 80 million years in the past. Which of these facts about New Zealand surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. If you love journeys into the most remarkable and isolated corners of our planet, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next exploration into places where nature wrote its own rules and the strange, wonderful outcomes that follow when evolution is finally left alone.